Good morning to the Nordics, good afternoon, good evening to the rest of us. Thank you very much for being with us today. My name is Niklas Karvonen. I'm Community Director at Nordic Innovation House Tokyo, and I will be your MC for today. Thank you for joining our How to Scale Nordic Fintechs to the World event. I'm going to give it a few more minutes for everyone to get settled in, and while doing so, I'll just go through some of the housekeeping items for today. Today's session is being recorded and we will send it to you within 24 hours of today's event, so you can rewatch the bits and pieces, and you'll also have access to any material that is being shared with you today. As for our panel discussion, we will use the Q&A button that you can find from the toolbar, so please feel free to use it and send any questions you might have to our wonderful panelists. Today's event is a joint effort with the 5 Nordic Innovation Houses globally, and we are very happy to be part of the Oslo Innovation Week 2021 with our event. So thank you again for joining us. And I'm sure you're all already very familiar with this, but it is a Zoom webinar, which means that the members in the audience, your microphones and videos will be turned off throughout the event. As for our panelists, I will ask you to introduce yourself after the Nordic Innovation House Global presentation. Thank you again very much for joining us. And without further ado, I will just like to go through our brief agenda for today. We'll kick off with an introduction to our 5 locations. What are the support services that we offer to our Nordic tech companies? And then we will jump into the How to Scale Nordic Fintechs to the World panel discussion, and of course have some closing words. If you just joined us now, welcome. My name is Niklas Karvonen, and I will be your MC for today. But without further ado, I would like to jump into the Nordic Innovation House presentation. I will go through all of our 5 locations. But first, let me just reiterate who we are and what is our mission, which is to scale the best of the Nordics. We are a community platform accelerating high-quality Nordic tech startups, scale-ups, and growth companies in our 5 locations around the world. And we are supported by Nordic Innovation and the Nordic Trade Promotion offices. Currently, we are present in Silicon Valley, New York, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Tokyo, which I will go through in that order. Starting with our very first house in Silicon Valley, where we started about a decade ago. We have a physical location in Palo Alto where our member companies can register and use the facilities, and is actually just being reopened after the challenging COVID times. You might know some of our flagship programs from Silicon Valley, which are the TINK, which is a 4-week acceleration program to validate product market fit and global scaling potential, as well as REACH, which is an incubation program to boost Nordic research-based tech projects and spinouts. And besides that, as you can see, there are plenty of different events and initiatives within food, within e-commerce, etc., as well as relevant visibility at relevant tech events. We will share all these slides and all these details with you after today's panel discussion. This is just a short snapshot of all the opportunities that we have around the world. Our next house that was opened was New York. As you know, is one of the most bustling startup cities in the world. And in our New York location, they offer an online portal for connecting and networking to the member companies, which is called The Hub. And as for their activities, the Nordic PropTech will actually just kick off next week, but they are currently recruiting companies to join the Nordic Spark, which is an early stage clean energy startup acceleration program for US market entry. So if you are interested in the US markets within clean energy, please do check them out. And there will also be a Women Innovation Conference and Bootcamp in March 2022. Next, let's jump on to our Asian location, starting with Singapore. Our Singapore location has been running for a few years now, with a focus on Singaporean as well as the Southeast Asian markets. Our Singapore location organizes thematic market entry programs. This year's completed ones are the Water, Waste, Food, and Nordic Health programs, but they are still currently recruiting for the Smart and Sustainable Cities program. So if you are looking into the Southeast Asian markets within this field, check out all the details from the website. And I believe the application deadline is coming up until 15th of October. So you still have some time there. And as you can see from the right-hand side, plenty of interesting events happening also in Singapore, where our house is active, such as the upcoming Singapore Week of Innovation and Technology, SWITCH, which I think many of you might be aware of. And let's move on then to our fourth location, which is Hong Kong, which also caters the Greater Bay Area, which entitles to the 12th largest economic entity in the world, and of course is known as a major financial hub. And coincidentally with today's theme, our Hong Kong house is currently recruiting companies to join the Hong Kong Fintech Week in a hybrid Nordic Innovation Fintech Pavilion. Companies do not need to physically travel to Hong Kong to be part of this booth. There will be plenty of visibility, pitching, and networking opportunities for companies who would like to join this program. If interested, feel free to reach out to me or directly to the director at our Hong Kong location. They are also recruiting companies to join a Gerentech event happening in November. Bear with me, this is our fifth location, also where I am based, our youngest of the Nordic Innovation Houses in Tokyo. We've been around for a bit more than a year. As you might know, Tokyo is the world's largest metropolitan area, and just a few weeks ago, it was ranked as 9th on the Global Startup Ecosystem Report by Startup Genome. Our focus areas here are digital health, clean tech, and digital transformation. Earlier this year, we launched a digital health market opportunities from Japan report. This is particularly tailored for the Nordic audience. So if you're a company within this field, please do check it out. And we will continue to focus on clean tech with a focus on maritime and eyeing on Sea Japan, which is happening in April next year. And something exciting from Tokyo to put in your calendars is also the Web Summit Tokyo 2022, which is bound to happen next fall. This is the first time that Web Summit will have an event in Japan as well. So it should be very interesting, and we'll definitely be involved in one way or another. Thank you for allowing me to go through very quickly our activities across the world. Here you have our contact information. Please do feel free to reach out. We are here to support you, to hit the ground running, as we say. And there are plenty of other activities and memberships, etc., that we offer. So feel free to reach out to any of the directors and managers that you see here. And as mentioned, you will have access to the slides after today's event. Thank you for allowing me to give a short introduction to the Nordic Innovation Houses. But I think that the main reason why you are here with us today is the panel discussion titled as How to Scale Nordic Fintechs to the World. I am very excited to have such a fantastic panelists with me here today. We already had a short session last week, and I think there's a lot of interesting things that we will be discussing. Just a few housekeeping items here. Don't forget the Q&A button, which you can use to interact with us and ask any questions you have. You are free to direct them to any particular company, or if you want it to be addressed by all the panelists, feel free to write it in the message. In our panel today, we have just going to quickly go through them, and then our panelists will give introductions by themselves as well. But we have Ms. Liselott Johansson, CEO and partner of a Swedish insurtech and fintech company called Greater Than, and Ms. Kanika Mittal, regional head APAC of an Icelandic fintech company called Meniga. as well as Mr. Erik Ingvoldstad, Chief Innovation Officer and co-founder of a Norwegian fintech company, Edenbol. So thank you very much for being with us today. I will stop sharing my screen here and would like to ask all of our panelists to unmute themselves and also turn on your video, say hello to our audience. And would like to go through a round of introductions. If you can just tell us who you are, what kind of things your company does. And since today's topic is about scaling, if you can also let us know which markets you are actively involved in, that would be great. And maybe we can start with Liselott.
Yes, hello, great to be here. I'm Liselott Johansson. I'm the CEO of Greater Than. As you mentioned, we are an insurtech company. Our focus is helping insurance companies and mobility companies and also automotive to understand the drivers better. And so we have a special and unique AI technology. And what we can do with that is to understand the risk on our roads. So actually how we're driving. So with our technology, we can reduce numbers of accidents on the road. And it's interesting also because it's having also in relation to the environment impact. So while you're driving safe, you're also driving more environment friendly. At the moment, we are located in Sweden, UK, Japan, and Singapore, and we are just entering now US during the fall.
So thank you very much, Liselott. Perhaps if I can ask Kanika to go next.
Thanks, Nicholas, and it's great to be here. As Nicholas was saying, I'm Kanika Mittal, and I'm the regional head Asia Pac for Miniga. And a very quick intro on Miniga. It's a white label AI-based fintech providing financial management solutions, specifically within digital banking. And we work predominantly through banks, and our solutions touch both the retail customers of a bank and the SME customers of a bank. So we are an Icelandic company. We originated in Iceland in 2009, but now we have 7 offices across the globe. Our solutions are active across 33 countries, and within Asia Pac, specifically in India, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand. And I'm based out of Singapore. So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Kanika, for the introduction. And then we have also Erik with us. Hello.
Hello, everyone. My name is Erik. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer of Edenbol. Edenbol is a Norwegian fintech company that provides spend management and card management platforms for banks. So we work with the banks to provide them a way of giving their business customers a better solution for managing spend and cards. And we also provide what we call commercial payments as a service, which is more of the back end side of things. And we provide that in an integrated fashion to the banks, to the end users. So similar to Miniga, we are also white labeling our products and sell them as the bank's own products. I'm also based in Singapore. I'm Norwegian originally, but based in Singapore. Edenbol, we started out as a Norwegian company that was global from the beginning. So we have our tech center in Edinburgh in Scotland. We have a few people here in Singapore. We have our HQ in Oslo. Our CEO sits in London. We also have our largest market outside of Europe is Australia. So we have people in Australia. We have business development in the US. And more people across Europe. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Erik, as well, and welcome once again, and thank you everyone for being with us. As we can hear, we are representing all the continents, so it would be very interesting to hear more how you have started your scaling operations and how you have ended up in these locations. So I have a couple of thematic areas I thought we would touch upon in today's discussion. But first, really starting from how do you choose the right market? And how do you choose the markets that you scale, and how do you evaluate the market potential? Do you have more of a company-wide scaling or internationalization strategy, or do you work on a more opportunistic manner in terms of where the clients and customers might come to your direction? Would be interesting to hear, and let's see if there's any differences. Maybe we can perhaps start with Eric. As you mentioned, you were born global.
Yes, so we always had ambitions to scale. We started our first customer base was in Norway, which is a great market to do our proof of concept and our MVP, get things ready and try it out in that market. So we really wanted to make sure that was our first market. And then we wanted to go as far away from Norway as we could. So we went to Australia. Now that was both relationship led as well as opportunity led. But maybe perhaps it was for us to show that a global proposition actually works, and for us to kind of show that not just having one product in one market that's great, but if you can take that idea and replicate it across different markets as far away. Now you can say Australia is geographically far away from Europe, but it's culturally similar. And I've lived in Australia myself. We know a lot of people in Australia, so it was a good place for us to go. And then we kind of go from there. Yes, we start with mature markets because they're easier to penetrate, and you have high degrees of digital payments, card payments, etc. in those markets. But we're opportunity led. If there is an opportunity in any country, we'll probably look at it.
Thank you very much, Eric. Interesting. You mentioned start from Norway, get the POC, and then product market fit perhaps, and then go as far as possible to see if it's relevant in other markets as well. And then being opportunistic as well as relationship have also played a role. Perhaps if we can hear from Kanika, if these thoughts resonate, or how do you do things, and Meniga?
Just my 2 cents, and this is just piggybacking on what Eric said, very similar, but my 2 cents really. So I feel that the new market entry, or any kind of new market entry, needs to be very well planned. Otherwise, it could drain resources, and not to mention morale. So few factors that are important from our perspective are obviously, the first one is product or solution fit. So I'll give you an idea. So within Asia Pac, a very ESG driven carbon footprint kind of a solution is relevant in some markets, but it may not be relevant for other markets because they're not there yet. Market readiness, which would be a second thing that I feel we look at. So there are markets here, which are open banking ready. They're implementing API-based ecosystem. However, there are many markets who are at least 3 years away in that journey. And then third, not to say it is the last but not the least, I'd say the local regulations and the ability of foreign companies to be able to work and deploy solutions in that market. That is also very important. And sometimes it might be that we cannot work directly with a client in a certain market, and we may need a partnership or a strong partner locally. So to answer your question, how do we choose markets to scale? This is the initial research that we put into before we scale or start looking at any market, and that's only then we decide whether to do it directly or through a partner in that particular market. And not to say that we're not reactive. In some markets, we may choose that 2022. These few markets are only going to be reactive and not proactive. So it really depends from time to time and priorities, internal priorities as well.
Right. Thank you very much, Kanika. Before I get to Lisa, maybe if I can ask a quick follow-up. You mentioned about this initial research into these new markets. Maybe if you can share to our audience a little bit, where would you start that? Would you use service providers to support you, or would you send someone on the field, or how does that initial research process look for you?
So it is no one right answer, obviously. It's a combination of several things. One is that you have to have some form of local perspective. Now, whether, like I said, it's through any of your global relationships or partnerships that you may leverage in the local market, or it may be global talent. Perhaps you're looking to grow by building an office there, or it could also be client perspective. So sometimes we meet prospects and clients through trade events or industry events, and that is also a good way to get the feel of the market. So it is a culmination of a lot of these factors, which help us put our initial view together for that particular market.
Right. Thank you very much. Sorry to keep you waiting, Lisa. A lot would be wonderful to hear also from Greater Than about your scaling strategy. Do you have something company-wide in place, or is it more opportunistic? And also, if you want to reflect on Kanika's thoughts on this initial research and how you do that, would be also interesting to hear.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy to hear the other stories. So I have no problem waiting. To tell you a bit about our strategy, it's not a market strategy really, it's more to customer. So our strategy is to identify which customer we can grow with in the best and easiest way. And some of the criteria we then working with to identify, they should be a leader on their market. So for example, we were working with Toyota in automotive. We're working with Zurich and MSIG, a world-leading insurance company in insurance area. And we're working also with other very fast-scaling mobility companies. For example, in Singapore and in Europe, we're working with Car Club, we're working with Onto and this kind of companies. So we try to identify more companies rather than market. And for sure, now when we're working with Toyota, and then we feel that it will accelerate our work with them to be present in Japan. And then we open up a company in Tokyo. And this is the same as how we entered into Singapore. We started to work with MSIG, we get more and more project with them. And then we feel that, okay, to really help them in the best way, it's good to be in the time zone, be closer, to go there, to meet them in an easy way. So that is how we're growing. And with that kind of strategy, we have our technology now in 75 markets. So we don't need to be in 75 markets. We are there through our customers. And sometimes it's good to share some mistakes you do. And sometimes it's very easy to jump on to work with customers that you think is easy because they are small, and then you think that is a way to build your business through them. We have learned that normally these smaller companies, they require even larger amount of resource than larger companies. So that's why we have focused to identify world-leading partners to grow with customers to grow with. So that have been our strategy. Now, as we have our scale up, it's always a challenge to have enough resources, and we need to see how we can scale in the best way, in an efficient way, and reach a huge amount of market. And our focus is to have many users on our platform. So that is the way we do it. And we do it as the other one we have in the panel through a white label solution to make it easy for our customer to have their platform and to get the platform and how they can communicate with their end users.
Thank you very much, Lisa. When you mentioned that you perhaps prefer to work with large customers, or that might be your area that you're targeting. I saw a lot of nodding from Kanika and Eric. I was just wondering if there's anything you would like to share regarding how you choose the partners that you work with and what are the things that you prioritize. Maybe if Eric wants to go first.
It's funny because when we started in Bull in 2018, we were kind of going small, mid-sized banks. That's our sweet spot. But then to Liselot's point, we found that what we have to do for a small and mid-sized bank is almost exactly the same that we have to do for a big bank. And we don't have, banks are mostly local. There are a few global players, but most of them are local, but they can be huge. So for instance, National Australia Bank that we work with in Australia, they have 60,000 business customers, and they're the 59th largest bank in the world. And that process became very smooth, exactly because of what Liselot said. They know how to do things. We know how to do things. We can get on the same idea and move forward much easier than small and mid-sized players. But it can be different. We have smaller players as well that are great to work with. So.
Thank you. Is there anything you would like to add, Kanika, to that?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in actually, because I concur with both Liselot and Eric. So Liselot mentioned that you don't need to be present in every country because you can grow through your customers. And Eric talked about how sometimes when you're working with larger players like tier 1 banks, for instance, it's a lot easier, not easier, but it's the scaling process becomes a little bit more straightforward. And we've seen that with some of our larger clients as well. So one of the clients in the region, UOB, we work with them across multiple markets in Southeast Asia, for instance, and millions of customers. And then again, in 2 completely different formats, Challenger Bank versus a digital bank app, which is being offered to their existing customers. And then shift gears, and we are working with a large bank in India, IDFC, and they have 9 million customers in one go. So, that scaling process, while it depends from, client to client, but definitely when you're working with international or larger tier 1 banks or organizations, then you really can scale faster.
Thank you for everyone's thoughts. I just wanted to give a quick reminder to our audience as well to feel free to use the Q&A if you would like to jump into the discussion. I can't help but point one thing. You mentioned that you don't need to be present in all countries, but sounds like you need to be present in some countries. If you have any experiences you would like to share, are there some markets where you feel like a physical presence is an absolute must? And why is that the case? Is this the size of the customer, or does it have something to do with the business culture, or maybe a mixture of both? If you have any experiences you would like to share in terms of what are either the markets or the particular countries where you absolutely feel like you need to have a presence.
Yes, I can go first. So actually, how we, as I mentioned, we have entered the market when we have a customer that we feel that now we have a lot of business with them. And what normally we feel, if we have an office in their market, they feel more confident and they feel. I think it's more a feeling from their side, as during COVID. We have so many digital meetings anyway, so we haven't met physical, but it's a feeling that we are present in their market, close to them, so they know that we are there and they have someone that they can meet, and hopefully we can meet them very, very soon now when hopefully the world is opening up again. But for me, during COVID, I would say it has not been necessary to be there, but the customer feel more confident when we are there, and we can be there to support them in a quick way in their time zone.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Just before I give the room for others, you mentioned a little bit about this COVID as well, and I think it's a topical theme for this particular question. So if Eric or Kanika wants to reflect also whether the COVID situation and today's hybrids and virtual worlds have changed your needs to actually be physically present, or have you had any thoughts how the future might also look like from that perspective?
I can go first, Eric.
Yeah.
So I don't think that in business world or in general, you can replace the importance of personal meetings or those relationships that you form. But I do feel that COVID has really helped us look into a hybrid model, like you mentioned. And what it's done is that it's also led slow adopters into, or made it compulsory for them to look at options like this, Zoom. We're doing this, and we're all in different locations, and yet, we're able to have a real life conversation and look at each other. So definitely COVID has helped in moving along that digital transformation, and not just from a business perspective, but even from a user perspective, which, at least in my world, in digital banking, a lot of users who were otherwise still very dependent on ATMs or regular bank branches, they're now able to do most of their or initiate most of their transactions through the digital app. So that was definitely a very good, strong, positive, tailwind that we needed during COVID. But still, I think the hybrid model needs a little bit more testing, because in certain markets, especially within Asia, with a language barrier and certain cultural nuances, it gets us there, but it doesn't help us get or build that relationship with the client. So I think it still needs a little bit of tweaking.
If I can look at it from two angles, I think there's one pre-entry angle, which is business development. You don't have to be in every market to do business development. Some markets you have to. There's no way you can do business development in the US with a team in Europe. I don't think so. You need someone who knows the market, understands the needs, and really can talk to in our case, the banks in that market. But other markets in Asia, for instance, you can be in Singapore and you can manage business development across Asia Pacific. But then when you move into the next phase and you're implementing a project, you need someone to be on the ground to ensure that everything goes smoothly. There's something called time zones that we sometimes forget. That makes it really difficult to manage things unless you have someone who can be there, pick up the phone at 9 a.m. when things are happening, and then contact, and we can kind of make that happen. And as for the COVID thing, I'll replicate what's been said here, but what's been great for us, and I'm not saying COVID is great, I'm saying for us has been that we were already working on Teams and whatnot. We were very much digitally working in a digital way. But what was really been important for us has been that the clients are more keen to jump on those calls, and that allows us to have our CEO, our CTO, our Chief Business Development Officer on the same call with the client. And of course, that helps in that process. And it's very awkward if they're online and the person in market is sitting there with the client. It doesn't really work. So the ability to say some meetings requires, tech people, it requires innovation, it requires different types of people, and then we can have those meetings. And I feel obviously that people are more open to those conversations now.
Thank you, everyone, for your thoughts on that. I would still like to keep us on the topic of choosing the right market and then entering into. We've talked a lot about perhaps existing client relationships and entering through partners. But I also wonder if there are other forms that you've used in terms of entering new markets, such as some proof of concepts, maybe even entering into accelerations, incubations, challenges, etc. Having a local investor involved in your company and getting through connections through that, or anything else, basically. What would you say are your typical ways of entering into markets? Is it always the same, or have you also had some different strategies based on different markets? Anyone who would like to take this first?
I'll start. We do proof of concept for our clients, and the reason why it's important is that although what we deliver has elements of the same thing, we don't build bespoke solutions. We build a platform that we then adapt to each market. And there are some requirements that are really, really important in the fintech industry, which is KYC, AML, onboarding, which varies greatly from market to market. What are they used to? In Norway, we have, in Sweden, we have bank ID. That's not really how they do it in other countries. Most banks have their own onboarding system and other onboarding system. So we really have to show how it works. And for us, we work with multiple data streams. So we can have cards issued by us. We can have cards issued by the bank. We could have cards issued by a third party. There could be debit cards, credit cards, prepaid cards. There's a lot of data streams from very different sources. And what we do is we pull them together and make sure they work. And then we have all the integrations that has to do with accounting and things like that. And those are specific for the markets. So we really have to show the customer how that will work in their market for their needs. The great thing about it, I think, and this is why working global is such a great thing, is that we can learn and adapt to the things that comes up in a conversation. So we have a client who's saying, oh, we would really like to see how virtual cards could work in this environment. We build that, and that allows us to have a broader set of products that we then can take to other markets and say, hey, we can offer virtual cards, and this is how it works, and we can prove it because we've already done it, which is really, really great for us. And I think that's the beauty of global, because let's face it, for Kanika and me at least, where you have very few banks to address in each market, you can't take them all. So you have to kind of move on and do something else.
Thank you, Eric. Please, Liselott. Go.
Yeah, so I can add on there to Eric. I think we're quite similar. The difference from us is that we don't need to adapt our product to each market. So our product can be used in each country globally, independent on really changing. So that make it very easy for us to do the POCs. So normally we have done the POC before and have an agreement. I mean, now that we get into a business before we think about getting into market. But I would say that is the most common for us. That is, we do it while we have a partner that is large enough that we feel that we can make larger business with if we are present. That is our strategy.
Thank you.
I think for us, at least in Asia, we've leveraged our global case studies very heavily, and it helps that we've had a very strong case study here on the ground, and we've helped them expand into 5 different markets. So that is that reflects to our ability to work with different currencies, languages, different countries, and we've deployed that entire solution for the most part from HQ for that one particular bank. And so that is helpful when we're having those conversations. We are agnostic to many of the concerns that our prospects raise, like the currency and the language and and we are white label, so we sit within the bank's infrastructure. So for us, scaling then really is about making sure that we have addressed the requirements of our prospects, and we're able to meet it. And over the last 11 or 12 years, having worked with 70 plus, 75 plus global clients, at least we have that track record going in that, you know, by now we have pretty much worked with most possible proprietary systems that the banks can throw at us. So at least we can speak with some confidence there that, you know, we got this. And this is, and very few firms in the world are doing what we're doing. So that also helps. So in Asia, relatively, those conversations have not been so much about proof of concepts. It's been about how can you help us specifically, given our goals.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to jump early on Eric's point about this knowledge transfer of these POCs and then what you can learn from one market and how that will help you adapt into another. I think we saw some nodding there. I think it would be very interesting to hear, how do you transfer that knowledge in your teams across different markets? Do you have something set in place, or is it perhaps some of the key individuals who will bring that knowledge from one project to another? And how important do you find it? Maybe it would be interesting to hear from Eric, how does that knowledge transfer kind of take place?
Well, we're still a smallish company, so it's not so difficult, and our management team is very connected, and we talk about everything. So I think for now it's manageable. But I think as we go, I think our tech center in Edinburgh has been crucial to ensuring that we learn from, if not mistakes, mishaps or stumbles that you have in tech development, and make sure that the consistency is there. And then, of course, as I mentioned, there's so many regulatory issues that we have to comply with. And that is basically the biggest challenge that many fintechs have, because for us, we made sure that that came early on for us. Our founder team had great experience in this area. We worked through it and really put that front and center, because banks don't want to take any risks when it comes to security and all of that. So. And because they're different, you can still learn, even though it's different implementations across the globe.
Thank you. Would Kanika or Liselott want to jump on that knowledge transfer, in case you have something in place or any examples that you would like to share? Or do you think this will be something that you will put more focus on moving forward?
I mean, how we have our technical platform, it's built like Lego. So it's a dynamic platform, and when we do a POC, then we take different pieces, build them together, and the product is done. So yes, for sure, it's very important. The whole team is always updated. If you add a new piece into our Lego, everybody need to know about what kind of functionality we have there. But normally we have every week, we call it Happy Family Meeting. So it's everybody around the globe meeting, and we share what is the new products or features that they have built, what business is ongoing, what is happening. So we try to meet and really share, and we use digital platforms. So when someone have released a new feature, we celebrate that and share it to each other through the digital platform. Communication is always hard. Even if you're small, you feel that, okay, it should be easy, but you need to really find the structure and see how you can try to get it spread through what you are up to, because it's very important that everybody knows about what you're building, because you don't want to build several things, the same several things, because you always need to be efficient to keep deadlines and really get the best value in what you invest in the product.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. I think that's a really good point, how you can prevent from that extra, some wouldn't call it slack, but things that don't need to be replicated being happening across different markets. How about Kanika? Do you have also happy family meetings or something else in place? Would love to join.
Yeah, something like that. Actually, the culture at Menica is very collaborative, and we actually monitor, the happiness meter of the employees. So it really is like a little bit of a big happy family. So that perspective, the combination of the local perspective versus, and combined with the innovation or the global perspective, that really helps us, because there's a lot of experience sharing that happens even before we deploy, say, a POC. Sometimes, we're talking to a client and we realize, because we have done something like that before for another client in, say, South Africa. And that knowledge sharing from the team who had deployed that, and speaking to the client who's looking to do that in Asia, 6 years later, there is definitely a lot of interesting solutions that we can offer clients. Many times we realize that if POC is maybe not even the best fit, maybe we can do a design workshop instead for our clients, or we can go more consultative route while they're still figuring out, or they're in the process of figuring out what they need to do with their digital transformation. So for us, yes, definitely the combination of having that local perspective combined with the global perspective, and that team dynamic, it's really important, and it's worked really well.
Thank you very much for sharing. Before we move on, I'd just like to give a chance for either Eric or Liselott to reflect. You mentioned that maybe POC is not the way to go. Maybe there is a design workshop needed, or increased understanding of digital transformation before you actually start, let's say, business development or introducing your products. If Eric or Liselott has similar experiences, and how do you identify that that's actually the stage where the company is at this point, and how do you take the discussion from there? Would be very interesting to hear.
So our recommendation normally when we meet the customer is it in real. So we recommend them not doing POCs actually. So we say, let's do this as a real project, and we do it in real. So you really can get the right feedback from market, because if you do it as POCs, normally you don't get the right feedback. So very often when we start with customer, it's actually real project, but maybe in a smaller scale with the ambition to be really large. So everybody in the team have that in the mindset, and it's for us a way to see how we faster can help them to get more knowledge from their end users, or more knowledge from the market. As what we do today, insurance company need to wait like 12 to 24 months before they know if they have done their pricing of their products right. With us, they can get in real time. So then we say it's better that you get out in a smaller scale, direct, you learn, and then we are easy to adapt. If they say, oh, we need this, okay, we need to see more about that, then we have very easy way to adapt release product to their needs. So we recommend, rather than focus on POCs, focus on finding a real project. And we find that really successful.
I actually completely agree, because half the time I feel when you do a POC, the client cannot even see the real impact. So, they base their decision on almost incomplete information or results. And that's why I completely concur. We also feel that, a real solution is more the way to go.
We often meet clients that are unsure if they're ready for a grand implementation of something, and so we kind of spend a lot of time helping them, trying to figure out where they are and where they want to go. So we actually have a small consulting arm in Bull Advisors that really helps them to analyze if their readiness for what can be seen as in some markets a big digital transformation, and some clients may have commercial card programs already. So then we go in and we help them analyze what's working well, what's not working, and how we can improve that. And then there are those who don't have a card program at all, and we kind of go in and say, okay, what's the market readiness for something like that? And that helps both the customer as well as us to kind of be prepared for what's coming and what needs to happen for this to be a seamless implementation. I want to say about POCs, because there are different levels of POCs as well, and not all of them have to be fully technical, operational. Some of them can be design studies and things like that, showing how the UX is going to help their customers, and testing that in market. And we have had great success with doing that. But it all comes down to listening and understanding, right? It's you can't just waltz into a market and think you're gonna rock it. You have to understand it.
Thank you, Eric, for that point. Maybe I would like to move on to talk actually a little bit about these differences across markets and the cultural perspective as well. Do you have some examples? Have you had to adapt your product or even your internal processes to fit these different markets? I think we have a few different types of products here, and it would be interesting to hear what are some of the cultural adaptations you've had to make. This can be either about the product or internally within your company, or other topics where you think that culture plays such an important role that you have to take it into account with this particular market. If there's any experiences someone would like to share, it would be great to hear.
I could start. I think that we've definitely done, maybe not tailoring our solution so much, because 95% of the time we are on-premise, and we do our implementations within the banking infrastructure. But we've definitely tailored our business model, to your point, Nicholas. And business model in terms of to ask or provide our customers with more a la carte options. For instance, maybe they already have part of the solution implemented in-house or built in-house, and perhaps they're looking to add on to it. And those are the kinds of modifications in our approach that we've made. So it's not one big black box of a solution per se, but it's a very transparent way of partnering with our clients, where we can come in and we can actually look at what they have and look to supplement that or build on top of it. So that kind of a collaborative approach in solutioning has been really good, and also not just limited to the solution approach where we are offering modules and not just the entire solution, but also in our pricing side. The way we have modified or tailored our pricing for some of these markets, depending again on the fit of the product, the specific requirements or the maturity of the market, that has definitely been very helpful. So I think that flexibility has helped Menica stay very relevant for most of the markets here.
Yeah. Thank you, Kanika. Please, Liselott.
Yes, I think, Kanika, you had, when we had this pre-talk, I think it was so interesting when you mentioned the difference from Europe to Asia from your perspective. I think it was really interesting. So can you please share with us?
Yes, you caught me on that, Lisa.
We've been waiting.
I was hoping you'd forget. Yeah, so I do feel that, and I shared this with you and Eric in the class. So in Europe, it tends to be a very homogenized market, right? I mean, here in Asia, from market to market, culture is different, language, there's a lot of diversity, and I do feel, that Asia tends to be a very relationship-driven market, and predominantly it's your relationship with the client, being able to understand them, build the trust before you deploy the solution, that you actually understand the product or their requirements and their goals, and you're looking to partner long term. I think that is almost more important than sometimes having the perfect product or the perfect business model. And Liselott, the rest of it we'll talk over a couple of drinks later.
Yeah, but I can agree you because I think about I think our success in Japan is that our founder early he had lived also in Japan. He had done business in Japan. He's very deep insight to their culture and what is important for the Japanese, because I think the culture is so important. That's why I thought it was good you give the basic story and I can add on. So it comes down to the language, it comes down to the culture. It's very, very important how to behave in each situation, how to close the deals and the business. And so I think, as you mentioned, the relationships is very, very important. And sometimes it's hard or it's easy to forget it, but it's very, very important to think about the relation and how you build it in different areas. For sure, doing business in the US or Japan or Europe, it's so different cultures. So I think that's important to have in mind.
Yeah, have you heard of meetings before meetings before meetings? So by the time the final meeting happens, you've already met a few times and talked, and the agenda is set and the decision's been made.
Yeah, but I think it's you build it up to really be able to close this business, because you don't do it for sure in the first meeting, as you mentioned. So no, but I think you really explained it very well, and I love your insights to it.
I'm living in Asia and have done for quite some time. I would agree with Kanika on almost everything she said, except I would discount the cultural differences in Europe or even in the US. So the differences between a New York office and a Tennessee office is huge, right? So you really have to.
Not huge, Eric.
That could be. I'm
kidding.
but I think it really comes down to listening and having respect for the culture you're in. No one expects you to be perfect. No one expects you, even in Japan, no one expects you to know all the cultural sensitivities. You just have to be respectful and listening and kind of mindful of the fact that you are coming into a market and you're not from that market. Obviously, in many markets, especially in Asia, you need to have someone who really understands how it works in that country. And on top of that, there are technical cultural differences, if you will. So there are legislative issues. For instance, if you go into Indonesia or to India, you have to process everything. All the data has to be processed locally. So that may shift your business model or your technical model. All of these things are things you really need to understand before you try to enter into those markets.
Yeah. Thank you all very much. As for Kanika's point, we have a word in Japanese called nemawashi, which is just planting the roots. So there might be many meetings where the discussions are just a show. So I'm very happy that we had a bit of time to talk about this matter as well. But time is really running fast today. We have only a few more minutes left. So I would like to conclude this discussion. I know we had many more topics we could have discussed, but this was very, very interesting. And I promise to give you all a chance for a final round of messages. You can reflect anything we talked today. What was your main takeaways? Or if your company has anything exciting you would like to share, or are you hiring, or what's your next market you're going to be scaling? Anything you would like to share to our Nordic audience? We can just have a quick round. Maybe we'll start with Kanika.
Okay, so I'm obviously going to say this because I'm a little bit biased. We've had a really long and very fruitful relationship with NIH. So obviously, thank you for that partnership. And we partner with NIH in multiple markets: Hong Kong, Singapore, Tokyo, Japan. And for me, again, I am biased. I feel, and I have a very strong Asia-centric view. I feel that I'm very bullish about fintech and the growth of fintech in Asia. And I obviously, you know, feel that the 60% of world's population that they say lives in Asia. It's also the home for some of the most advanced fintech markets in the world, example Singapore. So from that perspective, I hope to see, you know, more fintech, founders and hopefully you, Liselott, in person sometime in Singapore or in Asia. And that would be great to see more collaboration happen here.
Thank you very much, Kanika. It was not a paid comment, but very, very appreciative for that. Liselott, what would you like to share to our audience?
Yeah, so yes, we're working with you both in US and in Singapore with Nordic Innovation House. I think it's a good way if you like to scale. It's like a home. When I come to US, I go to Palo Alto, the office there. That's nice. But what I like to share, yes, we are hiring both on the tech side and sales side. So if someone listening there knows someone, please reach out to me, liselott.johansson@greatden.eu. And if someone know a business that can help us to scale even more, yes, I'm here for you too. Thank you.
Thanks, Liselott. I'll ask for the links later. We can put it on our thank you mail, so our audience will get the information. Eric, please.
I want to say that we're at this moment in time where there's so much opportunity, new technology, new regulation, new players coming into the market, and it's really upending everything, and that's really, really exciting. And we love being part of that environment and kind of work with different players and integrate as much as possible. So we're also growing and scaling rapidly in new markets. We're raising our Series A very shortly. So that's a very exciting time for us. But yeah, I really think that fintechs should really try to get out there. We didn't have time to talk about the Nordic way, but we really believe that the Nordic way is a great way of getting in touch with people, talking to markets across the world with, of course, respect and understanding of the cultural sensitivities, but really just kind of being, hey, we're Scandinavian companies, we're doing it this way, and we're really, it's a very collaborative approach, and we believe in that. So that's the kind of the Nordic sense that we try to bring into everything we do.
Thank you very much, Eric, for bringing the Nordic spirit, and looking forward to your Series A information and announcements. But with that, I would like to conclude our event today. We're 2 minutes past, sorry for that, but super big thanks to our wonderful panelists for taking their time and contributing to this event. It was a really, really exciting talk. I'm glad we have a recording of it, which we'll be sharing with a feedback form, all the links, how you can get hired by Greater Than. And really looking forward to meeting all our panelists again at some point. Thank you also to our audience. Thanks to all the 5 Nordic Innovation Houses for the cooperation and the Oslo Innovation Week for having us. But with that, I would like to conclude our event for today and wish you all a great continuation for your day. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicholas.
Bye.
Thanks, Liselott. Bye, Eric.
Bye.